Hey everybody, PC Outcast here, back with more Everlasting Summer, and we are hopefully drawing to the end of Lena's good ending. We'll see whether we've made the right choices or if I've somehow got us into a predicament, I guess. Somehow I woke up in my apartment. It didn't trigger any emotions at all. Yet another day of my life, that's all. I got out of bed and went up to the computer. A message window flashed on the taskbar. I sat down and stared at the monitor. Somebody wrote to me, and that means that somebody still needs me. The message contained only 2 words. Wake up. What do they want from me? An unknown ID? Is that spam? And what does it mean, wake up? I'm not sleeping anymore. The window still kept flashing. I tried to close it but failed. Yet another one popped out. And another one, and all of them contained the same wake up. What the hell do you want from me? I screamed. Soon the whole screen was blazing with identical messages. I couldn't bear it anymore, grabbed it and smashed it against the wall with all my strength. A phone rang. Strange, who could that be? Picked up the phone and just heard wake up. On the other end, thousands of voices. Men, women, children were screaming, wake up! I smashed the phone on the floor, but it didn't break and just kept ringing. What's happening? In a moment, the whole room was filled with strangers. They were grabbing my hands, peering into my eyes and screaming, wake up! I jumped off my bed in a cold sweat. Huh, what a dream. I came to my senses in a couple of minutes and took a look at the clock. It's 5 p.m. How long have I slept? All the events of yesterday flew through my head. Searching for Lena, the devastating conversation, Alyssa defeated. I really have to talk to her. Maybe she cooled down overnight. I dressed up, went out of the cabin, hesitated a little while gathering my thoughts, then headed to Lena's cabin. What shall I say? How do I begin the conversation? Can't just go with, "Hi, how are you? I was just passing by." There's no way I could lecture her straight off the bat. Not reaching a specific solution, I knocked. Nobody answered. I knocked again and then pulled on the doorknob. It's not locked. That's odd. However, there was nobody inside. Well, that means Lena's not here. I'll grab some food. I might find her in the canteen. Going along the rows of cabins, I didn't meet a single pioneer. That's odd, too. It's always crowded here at this time of day. Nobody was at the square, either. Coming up to the canteen, I started to get seriously concerned. It's time for dinner, but there's no sign of the hungry pioneer crowds. If only it was just that the canteen was closed. Looks like something has happened during the day. I sat down on the porch and started to consider the situation. All the pioneers were gone, without any warning. Well, of course, it's hard to say that this camp or my way of arriving here is normal, but I hadn't encountered any completely inexplicable stuff during this week yet. There were lots of strange things, but maybe they're hiding in that bunker. I chuckled aloud. While all this is very, to put it mildly, mysterious, I was nowhere near experiencing a panic attack. No, it's just that they have left. I almost jumped out of my skin. Lena was standing next to me. You can't just sneak up on people like that. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Sorry, she said calmly. Now her words dawned on me. Left. Hold on a second. What do you mean by just left? The session's over. And the camp leader? She had some business to take care of in town, so she went with them. Okay, and what about you? I stayed. Lena was talking with complete calmness, as if everything that has happened is completely normal and routine. How? Why is that? What's the problem? When the session is over, the children depart for their homes, don't they? And when was it decided that today is the last day of the session? You won't believe this, but on the very first day. Moreover, Olga announced this at the lineup. Yeah, even at those lineups that I attended, the last thing that crossed my mind was listening to the camp leader's announcements. Then why didn't anyone tell me anything? I've waited for a chance to get out of this damn camp for so long, and when it finally appeared, I obviously slept through it. Well, that's exactly my style. I asked them not to. Even if you would ask not to, Olga... Hold on. What? I asked for it, said Lena with the same confidence. And what, you asked them to leave me behind too? Yes. And don't you think that's all a little... absolutely wrong? I started shouting. Nope, it's perfectly normal. I took a good look at Lena. Not a single emotion has crossed her face since the beginning of our talk. It looks like the girl that's standing right in front of me is now not the kind of girl that's afraid of crickets, blushes at every occasion, and reads romance novels. Okay, I got it. Looks like this situation is directly connected to my mysterious arrival at this camp. Just who are you? Me? This morning I was Lena, she replied patiently. Oh yeah, and I'm Optimus Prime, born 9 million years ago in the Highlands of Scotland. I wasn't afraid of her or anything around myself at that moment. I was just bursting with anger from within. Nice to meet you, I'm Lena. Okay, now let's get serious. I think that what you're saying is frankly impossible. Today, as it turns out, is the last day. Somehow, I don't know a thing about it. The camp leader departs with everyone, leaving me behind just because you asked for it? Don't you find that all somewhat abnormal? Maybe I do. Are you hiding something? Maybe I am. Then spit out everything you've got. I told you already. I buried my face in my hands and took a deep breath. Okay. And what am I supposed to do in this situation? I don't know. And what are you going to do? I don't know. I'll go with the flow. Well, here's the flow. I hissed abruptly, spreading my hands. Why are you worrying so much? For the first time, a flicker of interest has appeared on her face. And how do you expect me to feel? Glad? Well, not really, but you yourself wanted it. Me? You're mad. And who said yesterday that he cares and that he wants to be with me? What's that got to do with us? I pretended not to understand, but it was finally starting to dawn on me what she was driving at. Your wish was granted. Yeah, sure. I mumbled under my breath. Well, here I am with you. That doesn't explain in any way what happened. There's always a couple of tricks that could help one succeed. And you... that is how... Yes. Smile crossed her face. Ahem. If I'd known that you were so cunning from the very beginning... To tell the truth, I kind of liked this whole situation. Well, not really liked, but I was curious. Of course, I'm very sorry that I couldn't have escaped with everyone else. However, I'm having a tat. I don't know what that is. With Lena now. That might mean that I'll get a chance to see the real her. And all the answers that I was longing for could be right here, not in some mysterious town which everyone else had headed for. Okay, so what are we gonna do now? We? She smiled. Yeah, we. We are the only ones staying here. The canteen's closed, and I seriously doubt that there's any food left there anyway. Of course, Olga should return in the foreseeable future, but... What does it matter? Okay, it doesn't matter. Any suggestions? What do you want? She asked with a sly smile. I would have grabbed something to eat, and then I don't know. Well, let's go and have something. Where to? There should be some food left in my cabin. Okay, deal. We went in and Lena rummaged around in the desk drawer. Well, there are cookies. Want some? She handed me a half-open pack of biscuits. Oh, how cute. I sneered. Why? Biscuits. Like in my childhood. I guess. She smiled and sat next to me. Well? I asked with my mouth full. What? So what are we gonna do? I don't know. She wistfully gazed out of the window. But what do you want? Well, really, what do I want? Mere half hour ago, my only thought was to get away from this damned camp. Right, but now, right here next to her, something seemed to change. Well, I don't know either. Think harder. She drew herself closer and gazed into my eyes. Well, my face was blushing and my mind was racing. Not just because I was in such extreme proximity to a girl that quite clearly wants something from me, but mainly because that girl was Lena. Well, she studied me closely. Lena, What? To say that she didn't look like herself was nothing. I was not afraid of this metamorphosis at all. Rather, I was afraid of myself, what I could do in such a situation. Didn't you want to be with me? She whispered into my ear seductively. I did. I do. Then what's the problem? It's also... Besides, I have some other circumstances. What circumstances? Pulled away from me. Well, various circumstances? You don't prefer... Do you? Lena laughed. Hell no! How could you think that? Looks like I blushed even harder. Then what's the problem? Are you sure that you want that? I tried hard to change the subject. After all, just a week ago, I had only my normal life, a life where everything was strictly tied up and well organized and where there was no place for girls. And now I'm in some kind of mysterious camp with Lena sitting next to me and hinting towards something. How should I behave in such a situation? Yes, she frowned. Of course I do. What's the problem? Well, I was behaving like I wasn't even 17, which was how I looked now. As if I was much younger. Mine too, she smiled. I had to decide what to do next. Now, after this session was closed and all the pioneers were gone, I had to seek the answers. Above all, I just had to beware this girl that could change her behavior and even her character so easily at will. But at that exact moment, I was possessed by only one thought. Oh, what the hell? Well, if you don't mind. I closed my eyes. She said nothing, just smiled and moved even closer. Our lips locked in a long kiss. I forgot everything at that moment. I forgot about the weird camp. I forgot about the local pioneers that were in fact gone. I forgot about our wacky camp leader. I forgot about my past life and about my future, if it would ever come. Right now, the only one that mattered was Lena, her soft lips, her warmth that poured deep into my soul, burning me from the inside. I gently moved her aside. Hold on. Don't you think that this is way too... fast? Why? She smiled and looked at me in such a way that I immediately felt ready to drown in her eyes. You're sure, aren't you? I am, I whispered quietly. At that exact moment, I truly loved Lena. I wanted to hold her tighter and never let go. She felt the same, of course. Time flashed by way too fast when we became as one. Oh. When I woke up, it was already dark outside. I got out of bed, put on my trousers, and had a stroll around the room. What was that? Just an animal instinct, or maybe it was something more? No, it's all wrong. Completely wrong. I'm stuck in this camp. I've lost my chance to get out of here, and most of all, I'm with a girl who probably has a split personality and manic depressive disorder. I looked at the sleeping Lena. Anyhow, she's marvelous. Everything that happened between us literally only a couple of hours ago flashed before my eyes, and I felt shivers up my spine. Nah, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but if I could have returned back in time, I would have done exactly the same thing. I smiled widely and sat down next to her on the bed. I had absolutely no desire to wake Lena up. It was an unspeakable pleasure, just watching how she sleeps. People say that the sleep reveals the true face of a person. I heard a legend that some ancient civilization had a custom. Before getting married, a woman watches her fiancé sleeping for 3 nights, and then she decided whether to marry him or not. Bearing that in mind, I could confidently say that Lena's face showed nothing but goodness, kindness, and childlike naivety. Could this really be the girl that knocked Alyssa out yesterday? Well, whatever it may be, everything's already happened. And I've already seen Lena like that. The humility for the first few days, the hysterics back there on the island, the rage at the square yesterday, her passion today. How can one single human cope with so many opposing personality traits? Might it be the case that she really has a double, triple, even quadruple split personality? Oh. I don't know how much time I spent just watching Lena sleeping. It might have been a couple of minutes, or it might have been a couple of hours. Finally, she awakened. "Good morning," Lena smiled tenderly. "Come here." She rose and hugged me. I didn't resist and plopped down on the bed. "You are so wonderful," she whispered in my ear, kissing my neck. "You too," but my voice hesitated. "Want to do it again?" She smiled. She asked playfully. "Hold on." I moved her away gently. "You know, all this is anything but simple. When we just met, you seemed to be one person. Then you've seemed to be another one, and today... Now I can't understand at all who you really are. And yet again, what you did to Alyssa..." "Her again!" Lena covered up with a blanket and turned away. "Didn't you like what we did? Want to do it with her too? Now I won't hold you back. Come on, compare us. I'll leave you her address. You can tell me who's better. Or we can have a threesome." She sounded like she wasn't talking about me or her. Like she was talking about complete strangers. "Oh, there you go again." I sighed. "Throughout today, you should have realized that the last person I would think about now would be Alyssa." "Okay, you're right." She turned to me, smiled, and hugged me tightly. "Hold on. I still have to understand. Why? I can't just simply... And yes, I do care. That's why I really need to know who you really are." "I'm just me," she answered in the same languid voice. But there's a lot of words in this game that I don't know. My brakes started to break from all these emotions. I have to calm down somehow. I jumped to my feet and moved across to sit on the opposite bed. "Fine," Lena said disappointedly and started to get dressed. I'm not asking for much. Just a few answers to a few questions. Later, it's time to depart. She interrupted me impassively. "What? Where are we going?" "What do you mean, where? Back to town, of course." "But you told me..." Well, I might have withheld something. In fact, I persuaded Olga that we still have some extremely urgent matters here and will come later. "How would we get to town then?" "By bus, of course." "There are no buses here." I grinned. "What do you mean, no buses? Of course they are. Route 410. I didn't know whether I should believe it or not. The situation seemed to be going out of control, but I wouldn't argue. "Oh, okay," I managed cautiously. "Come on, get packed. Meet me at the square in 10 minutes. "Okay." I gave up asking and left the cabin. Frankly speaking, I had almost nothing to pack. I just tossed my winter clothing into a bag and headed to the square. Lena was already waiting for me there with a gym bag on her shoulder. "You don't seem to carry a lot of luggage." It's just enough. She smiled. Let me carry it. Please do. Although her bag seemed almost weightless, a bit of chivalry never hurt anyone. We were walking and Lena was constantly telling jokes, anecdotes, funny stories, never stopped laughing. Now I had really lost touch with the person next to me. Is she the one I met a week ago, or the one I saw for the first time this morning? When we reached the bus stop, I took out my mobile phone and checked the time. Surprisingly, there was still some power left. It was almost 11 p.m. Isn't it a bit late for buses? Oh, what is that? I asked Lena curiously. Oh, just a toy. Take it, it's a gift. Thank you. She smiled and took the phone. What can you play on it? You'll work it out yourself later, it's not that hard. Anyway, a mobile phone is totally useless here. We waited for about half an hour and Lena just kept talking and talking. Well, I must admit that I found her stories amusing and I felt comfortable with her, but what about the bus? So what about... I didn't finish the sentence as I saw the glimmer of headlights in the distance. Ah, here it is. Lena exclaimed enthusiastically. The bus was slowly carrying us away from Sovyanok Pioneer Camp. I just wanted to believe that we'd never ever go back. The darkness beyond the window prevented us from seeing the road, the woods, or the forest, or the fields. Actually, it might be the case that they're all long gone and we're flying through a void towards the unknown. Anyway, I couldn't care less for the surroundings, I just kept listening to Lena. Perhaps she'd said more words today than she had throughout her past life. You know, I interrupted her at last, I still don't understand. What exactly? She smiled. How come you could be so hesitant, so humble at first, unable to string two words together, and then, like this? Is that important? Yes, for me it is. Well, she took a deep breath before answering. You see, I've always been the way you saw me the first time we met. I was like that in public. I wasn't able to live as I wanted to since childhood, so I put on a mask. She went silent. Although, let's not go too deep into that. Lena laughed and cuddled my arm, pressing her body tightly against me. Okay, I get it. It was probably very hard for her to discuss it, indeed. Anyway, I got a lot, even from such a short explanation. But still, can I be sure you won't turn into that one again? You won't retreat into your shell? Won't surrender to your anger and rage? That depends on you. Lena smiled slyly. It was just now that I realized that I'm playing a high-stakes game. On the one hand, I've spent a week in this obscure world just trying to find some answers. I have nothing to my name and nowhere to return to, damn it. On the other hand, there's this girl who obviously matters so much to me. I almost didn't need to think about whether I had any feelings for Lena. I just wanted to be by her side, look at her, listen to her voice. I liked her the way she was. I assured myself that this is it. The real Lena is in front of me. And now when these thoughts come back about my past life, my mysterious appearance in an 80s pioneer camp, it's just not the time for such thoughts. I feel good right now being close to her. I don't want to return anywhere. I don't want any answers. I don't want to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. If it's up to me, then I just want to believe that you'll always be the way you are now, for this is the way I love you. Then I'll keep being this way as long as we're together. She hugged me even tighter. I don't know how long we'd been on the road, but Lena's chatter gradually started to quiet down. She put her head on my shoulder, but was still telling me a story about her cat getting into the sleeping medicine, getting dizzy and wreaking havoc. I slowly started to doze off myself. But still, why did you hit Alyssa? She looked at me closely with a serious expression on her face. I always hated that bitch. Lena laughed loudly and nuzzled into my shoulder. Okay. I desperately tried not to fall asleep. It's unknown what's waiting there after the bus's next turn. Might be a new life waiting for me, or it might be the end of this fairy tale, and I'll be buried in the coffin of the peeling walls and ceiling of my old apartment. But it was a losing battle. Morpheus has summoned legions of monsters under the command of fatigue, exhaustion, desolation, and uncertainty. I had no chance to win the battle against these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and I drifted off to sleep. Day question mark? Wake up! Consciousness slowly returned to me. It's like falling off a cliff so high that clouds are drifting nearby. The ground is coming closer, but I'm not afraid that I'll die. My fall slows down and my body is smoothly immersed into the warm ether. I opened my eyes. You'll sleep through your whole life like that. Lena looked at me seriously. What? We're there already? Where's there? I looked around. A bench, the square, agenda. But how? I was on the bus going to the district center. Why are you looking at me as if you've seen a ghost? But why am I still here? For a second I felt terrible fear. Will I ever get out of this place? We were on the bus together. On the bus? Yesterday. Yesterday? Yes, yesterday. Don't you remember? Lena started thinking. Yesterday. I don't remember anything like that. Maybe you just had a bad dream. Considering that all has should be what all has happened. Already seems like a hallucination. This must be a dream within a dream then. Well, let's take it slowly. I tried to think logically. The session ended yesterday. All pioneers left, but we stayed. And then we took a bus and headed to the district center. Lena surely looked perplexed. Are you kidding me? I'm not kidding anyone. Today is the last day. Wait, so how much time have I spent here? Lena started to count off on her fingers. Looks like 7 days. Not 8? It's 7, definitely 7. I gave an exhausted sigh and covered my face with my hands. Well, that's another riddle in the long list of this camp's mysteries. Well, okay. Though I have a feeling that we won't manage to leave today either. Why? Sixth sense. You're acting a bit strange today. I suppose I have my reasons. Want to tell me? I gazed at her attentively. I do. Sure, why not? When I had a real chance to break free from this camp, everything failed. So what do I have to lose now? Now where do I start? Start from the beginning. Yes, of course. Well, I was born. I studied, married, well, okay, I haven't gotten married yet. You still have time. Yes, but, well, in a few words like, I'm not from this world. From the look she gave me, it was clear she didn't understand me at all. I came here accidentally, even I don't know how. So what does your world look like? Lena asked seriously. It's virtually the same, but 20 years ahead of your world. You already have spaceflight? Well, if it comes to that, you have it as well. However, we haven't made any great achievements in that field yet. Sounds interesting. I was unable to tell if Lena was taking me seriously or was just pretending to do so. I used to live in a completely different place as well, far away to the north, judging from the landscape, in a big city. I've never been to the big cities. Maybe that's for the best. Will you show me your house? It seemed like she was taking this conversation as seriously as I was. Well, I'm not even sure it exists in this world. Oh, come on, Lena pouted. Well, sure, I will. So how did you get here? One evening I took a bus, Route 410, and woke up here. I don't know anything more than that. The 410 route, that's the one that stops just outside the camp. Yes, but my 410 travels in another place, and time. Are you planning to return? Lena said, and I noticed a note of unhappiness in her voice. I have no idea how to. And if you knew? You're asking tough questions. What's wrong? Nothing, but... You see, I only just recently started to adjust to being here. The first hours of the camp were such a shock for me that I don't know. It's okay, you still have time to think about it. Time to think? Seems that even if Lena believed me, she considers this whole situation just a typical inconvenience and nothing more. Anyway, it's not up to me. Possibly even if I do want to stay. You see, the one who brought me here can take me back as well. I believe that any event in a person's life has a reason. Therefore, you are here for some reason. Maybe. And if you haven't returned, you must be needed here. Well, I can't rule out that interpretation. Hey, time to pack your stuff! Camp leader's voice sounded from afar. Hear that? I don't have much to pack, but I do. So, meet you near the bus. Would you like me to help? Thanks, but there's no need. Lena smiled and ran off towards her cabin. I remained sitting on the bench, trying to cope with the shock. My thoughts were still in chaos, one theory replacing another. On one hand, me being unable to get out of this camp isn't all that odd compared to me finding myself here in the first place, but what now? What am I supposed to do? Is there any chance that I can leave the camp if I try again? Anyway, what's the point in being nervous? By now, I know perfectly well that obviously nothing is up to me. Maybe I just have to sit back and enjoy the ride. I couldn't help smiling, especially now when I have an additional reason not to be in any hurry to leave. And that reason is Lena. Maybe she's right and I'm here for some reason. In the end, even if I can narrow down the possible explanations for my situation to a reasonable minimum, there would still be 1,001. And if I keep exhausting myself analyzing them, I'll just go mad. Maybe it's time I make a choice. Maybe this world is not so bad after all. Especially since for the first time in a long time, I have something to live for. It's still a vague something, but still, I have it. It exists. And now I have the power not to simply hold it, but to develop it into something bigger. With such thoughts, I stood up and started walking to Olga's cabin in order to pack my humble belongings and leave the Sovyanok Pioneer Camp forever. Interesting. One may think it's strange, and that's exactly how it seemed to me, but eventually we reached the district center. I eventually got tired in the bus and fell asleep. When I woke up, I ran up and down the aisle of the bus, gasping for air, but soon I realized that this long week is over. At last, I managed to break free from the camp. All the time I spent there seemed like so much longer than 7 days, and now everything's over. Soon after that, events moved with frightening speed. No time left for self-analysis or seeking answers. Moreover, from time to time I completely forgot about the camp. Like anyone who found themselves in a completely strange environment, I was completely lost. I had no papers, not even a simple birth certificate, and no skills to earn a living. Professions such as computer specialist or call center operator were not in demand. Lena returned to her normal life. She had to graduate from school and get ready to enter university. The Pioneer Camp was in the south of the USSR, just as I'd assumed. Lena lived in a town with a population of about 100,000. It was easy to get there by bus from the district center. There was nothing special about the town. One big factory, rows of 5-story houses, wooden huts on the outskirts, a grocery store that closed at 7 p.m. and a supermarket. A true Eden for a shopaholic, with choices including rubber winter shoes, women's sheepskin coats, and men's musquash hats? I don't know what that is either. Before, I would already be trying to run away from a place like this, but now it was my home. Cases of starvation were rare in the 20th century Europe. I managed to find a job. I was employed as a turner's assistant in a factory and was also given a room in a hostel. The heck is a turner? Over time, this initially difficult and strange job started to bring a certain satisfaction. Partially, of course, that came from having the ability to buy food. Time passed and I climbed up a career ladder, becoming the head of the whole shift. My colleagues were amazed at my talent and persistence, and so was I. Lena graduated from school and I spent several nights with a calculator, designing diagrams of expenses and income, and at last made up my mind to propose to Lena. I don't remember now if it took a lot of time for her to think, if she suggested we sign a marriage contract, or if she protested because of the lack of a dowry, but in a short time both of us moved into a communal apartment room near the factory that cost 2/3 of my salary. Thanks to free Soviet education for everyone, or maybe thanks to my wife's persistence, eventually I became a part-time student at the local polytechnic university. At first I protested, saying that a fair proletarian had no need to act like the lousy intellectuals, but then I came to the conclusion that a diploma would make my life easier. It wasn't difficult to study thanks to my knowledge from my last attempt at receiving a higher education. Time passed, and the country started to change. Of course, I knew it would happen, but still, the changes came out of the blue. You could compare it to being caught in an avalanche in the mountains. You can prepare all you like, but it will still bury you anyway. The factory was privatized and then closed down. Moonlighting as a private driver in the Kopyaka? It's a Russian car, very cheap and old, okay? A rattle trap I inherited from my father-in-law was not really a profitable business. I was even ready to apply for a camp leader position in Sovyanok when Lena's distant relative died and left us a one-room apartment somewhere in central Russia. After a family council, we decided to move. We greeted the early 90s in a cramped kitchen in a Krushkovka? It's a low-cost, concrete-paneled, 3 to 5 storied building developed in USSR during the reign of Nikita Khrushchev. That's his name, I think. Watching Swan Lake. Thanks to random side jobs, I saved up some money and we decided to move to a bigger city, and of course, I chose my birthplace. We decided to sell the flat and use the money to invest in business. For some time we lived in luxury, buying mink fur coats and expensive foreign cars, dining in restaurants and taking trips to other countries. Like many others during that time, I had the luck to somehow make it big, starting from the bottom. My business was construction material retail. It was a profitable market at the time because people made excessive money that they wanted to invest in luxurious homes. Maybe such life could have gone on, but the 90s were called rakish for a reason. Rakish? After encountering rackets and corruption, I was left with an empty refrigerator, an empty wallet, and the bitter taste of blood in my mouth. That was the time I tried to recall my man-from-the-future status. Betting places that were impossible in the Soviet area popped up all over, and I rushed to gamble on everything I knew. However, I faced new disappointments, as matches were won by completely different teams. Even the 1994 World Cup champion wasn't Brazil. When I was just watching football on TV, everything went as it should, but whenever I spent the last of my money to make a bet, even underdogs began phenomenally beating favorites. As well as that, I tried to pursue the career of a political advisor. However, you don't get accepted into a high position like that without special connections or anything that would make people interested. I don't know how long I would have gone through this torment if not for an event which changed everything. Me and Lena had a child. In a hurry, I started to search for any possible way to earn enough to provide for my family. I remembered some of my father's old friends, and through them, by pretending to be a distant relative of myself, I gained a place as a junior data analyst in a bank. At the same time, I made a new attempt to obtain my degree, or to be precise, to finish it. Time slowly passed. Passed slowly. The money was just enough to fill our stomachs. I almost lived at work for days, trying to find some time for my exams. Lena stayed at home with the baby. That was when I started writing. I remember it as if it was yesterday. It was just after midnight, and I was sitting in the kitchen in front of my old worn-out i386, wildly killing monsters in Doom 2. I wanted to sleep badly, but computer games at least slightly distracted me from the infinity of dull days. When I completed another level, I was suddenly immersed in thoughts about everything I had gone through during the last few years. It was all too much for one person. That's when I decided to write down everything that had happened to me. I launched the word processor and wrote down about 200 words, with a clear intent of continuing it tomorrow. However, I didn't remember it tomorrow, or even a week later. About a month later, Lena, who was typing something on the computer, reminded me of my unfinished book. I reread it and deleted it, terrified. At that moment, I started to doubt if I could ever do it. After all, it was an entire epic novel, and I wasn't even able to string 2 sentences together. In addition, it's not easy to write about yourself. Creative work put on the back burner for now. I celebrated the arrival of the year 2000 as a certified specialist with department head duties. While moving to another department, I found my old i386 among the trash that was to be thrown away, and I remembered my intention of writing a book about my life. I laughed. How stupid. However, after some time, I opened my laptop and made a sort of draft of a short story about a young man without a definite occupation or aspirations who finds himself on a different planet. The style, orthography, and punctuation, as well as the idea of itself, were matched well to such a silly plot. I showed the story to my wife. She laughed, but said that it was well written and advised me to continue. About a year later, the drawer designated for holding my literary works was full. I found that very odd because I was spending entire days at work, sometimes even during holidays. And I tried to spend all my available free time with my family. However, that's what happened. Around that time, I decided to publish my short stories. As with any other beginner's work, most of mine were rejected, but a couple of them were accepted, including my first work. I was over the moon. Of course, I was paid nothing, but my works will be read, meaning that someone will find them interesting. Time passed. We had a second baby now. During my spare time, I slowly wrote a novel. No, not about my life, or the pioneer camp. I decided not to touch upon those themes ever again. Everything that happened years ago seemed to be the will of God, whose charity should not be tempted. Who can tell what would have happened if I hadn't woken up in a bus near the Sovianok camp gates? A year later, the novel was completed. After I'd annoyed almost all known publishers, I managed to reach an agreement with a small company. The editor, an elderly man wearing a ragged tweed jacket and thick spectacles, which almost rubbed against his magnificent gray mustache, told me, "Your level is average, young man." Should be novel? Average, yes. But the idea itself is interesting. Interesting, yes. Well, you need more practice and, more reading. Yes. I remembered these words for the rest of my life. I dispensed the copies that were sent to me as part of my royalty agreement among my friends and colleagues. Lena, who read my novel only after it was published, told me that she really liked it. Mostly out of a desire to not upset me, I guess. Time passed. The calendar days were unstoppably approaching that day when I was pulled out of my usual world and thrown into this life. Starting from the mysterious pioneer camp and now ending up here. Now I'm a successful writer, at least according to the number of copies of my books that have sold. I have a wonderful wife and 2 children. My life has turned 180 degrees. Midnight tonight is the start of something new. Tomorrow is the day that I was awaiting for so many years. What are you thinking about? I opened my eyes and saw Lena. She put a cup of tea on the table near an armchair. Firewood was gently crackling in the fireplace and a snowstorm was roaring outside. I wrapped myself up in a plaid blanket and looked at Lena. You know what today is? No. What day? Do you remember what I told you back there in the camp? No. No wonder. During all these years, I've never brought up the topic of my mysterious arrival in this world. Do you remember how I told you that I'm not from this world? Lena paused. Well, something like that, yes? So today is the day when many years ago I got on the 410 bus and woke up at the pioneer camp. So it's an anniversary? Lena smiled. Yes, sort of. Is it a sad celebration for you? No, not at all. And I remember almost nothing about that time. Maybe that's for the best. I added some firewood to the fire and took the mug from the table. Maybe I'll write a novel. You'll read it and remember. You think that's a good idea? Lena's expression became serious. Indeed, I once promised myself that I would never write about it. Maybe it's not. After all, everything that happened is just for us. That's exactly what I think. I sighed and looked at the fire. You know, life is like a candle. Someone's got a short one, someone's got a long one, and it can burn out at any moment. Then our life is like this fireplace. Yes, perhaps. I looked at her and smiled. I'll sleep for a while longer. Lena kissed me and fixed her gaze on the fire in a dreamy manner. My eyes closed and my whole reality compressed itself down to the crackling of the firewood. I started falling, slowly, somewhere, far away. No, it was not a dream, more like warm ether, gently enveloping my entire existence. Living the dream. Every story has its beginning and its end. And that is the good ending with Lena. What a crazy story. Up and down and all around. And she ended up becoming the person that she was at the very end? Sort of. I don't know. Well, thanks to the developers. Interesting story, that's for sure. Thanks for joining me too. So next up, I'm almost afraid to even attempt it. We've got Lena's bad ending. That's not gonna end well. So we'll see you in the next episode.